California's population dropped by more than 500,000 people between April 2020 and July 2022. California analyst Joel Kotkin writes, California now has America's worst rates of cost of living adjusted poverty and functional illiteracy, the worst housing affordability in the continental U.S., and a devastating shortage of mid-skilled jobs. What's more, in 2022, California suffered some of the lowest personal income growth rates in the country, and its GDP grew at less than half the pace of its arch rival, Texas. What about the budget surplus that Governor Gavin Newsom has bragged about?
Governor Gavin Newsom has come out with the revised state budget proposal. Revised because the state has a lot more money to spend. The state surplus is now almost $100 billion.
$97.5 billion operating surplus.
California has reportedly collected $55 billion more in taxes than expected this year.
But that didn't last very long. Kotkin writes, California's once huge budget surplus has morphed into a deficit of $25 billion, one that may become even higher in the coming years given the high chance of recession. Because of this, California's political class is under pressure either to shrink its expansive welfare state and regulatory regime or to raise taxes, although taxes are already among the highest in the country. Meanwhile, companies are deserting California in droves, as are some of the top 1% of earners who pay roughly half the state's income taxes. And it's getting worse. Kotkin and his colleagues at California's Chapman University also write, California is in a state of existential crisis, losing both its middle age and middle class, while its poor population faces dimming prospects. Despite the state's myriad advantages, research shows it's plagued by economic immobility and inequality, crushing housing and energy costs, and a failing education system. And speaking of poverty, Kotkin writes, the poor and near poor constitute over 1/3, well over 10 million of the state's residents. Los Angeles, by far the state's largest metro area, and once a magnet for middle-class aspirations, has one of the highest poverty rates among major U.S. cities. A United Way of California analysts shows over 30% of residents lack sufficient income to cover basic living costs, even after accounting for public assistance programs. This includes half of Latino and 40% of Black residents. Some 2/3 of non-citizen Latinos live at or below the poverty line. Beyond massive homeless camps, crime has become so bad that the LAPD has warned tourists it can no longer protect them. San Francisco, meanwhile, suffers the highest poverty crime rate in the country. Businesses like Walgreens have shut down numerous Bay Area locations due to rampant burglaries. Homelessness and crime increasingly dominate the state's political discourse, particularly in these two deep blue bastions, LA and San Francisco. The left love to talk about DEI, diverse, inequality, equity. Back to Cotton. California also faces growing inequality by the Gini Index, a measure of the distribution of income across the population. California has the third highest inequality behind New York and Louisiana, and has experienced the fifth largest expansion of inequality since 2010. California also suffers the widest gap between middle and upper middle income earners of any state. Now let's talk about California's public schools. Larry Sand is a retired teacher and president of the California Teachers Empowerment Network. He writes that according to a recent report, California now leads the country in illiteracy. In fact, 23.1% of Californians over the age of 15 cannot read this sentence. The 2019 National Assessment of Educational Progress found that just 30% of California 8th graders are proficient in reading. And those numbers reflect results gathered before the COVID-19 lockdowns. Public school enrollment is sinking. In 2018-2019, the system lost about 23,000 students. But between 2019, 2020, and the 2020-2021 terms, California public schools saw more than 160,000 students leave, a 7-fold increase. Where are the leavers going for schooling? Some are being schooled in other states, as California's overall population is declining, while others are opting for the state's Catholic schools, which have seen a major uptick. Homeschooling has been booming too. Pre-pandemic, California had roughly 200,000 homeschool students. For 2020, 2021, 400,000 were being homeschooled for at least part of the school year. Joining me to discuss this is the aforementioned Larry Sand, president of the California Teachers Empowerment Network. Now, I know you like the show, so hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. We want to get our subscriptions up. Also, scroll down and you can see how you can get on our mailing list. Why would you want to get on our mailing list? Well, because every now and then, for reasons that we're not quite sure of, YouTube has issues with our videos. You want to make sure you always get our videos, get on our mailing list. Also, you see that donate button? Hit that. Throw a little something in the tip jar. Make sure you can still get hard-hitting, candid, breaking news programming from Epoch Times. So throw a little something in the tip jar. Remember, Larry with Epoch.com, Larry with EPOCH.com. Larry, you can't make these numbers up.
No, Larry. I mean, after all the bad news you gave us, with the other numbers, then education is piled on, and there's nothing really good to report because there's no sign that anything's going to turn around. Now just one slight caveat on that: 23.1% of Californians over the age of 15 can't read. A part of that is probably because we have a large illegal immigrant, or migrant, or whatever the politically correct term is these days, population. But still, too many kids get out of school with no skills, and the literacy rate and the numeracy rate are just terrible in this state. And as I say, the worst part is that nobody seems to be doing anything about it. I mean, the only thing that people are doing, they're pulling the kids out of public school. I say nobody's doing anything about it, I mean in an official way.
I remember when I was running for governor, Larry, I came across a stat. It was like 75% of black third graders in our government schools can neither read nor do math at grade level proficiency. 75%. Yeah.
I mean, third grade. And that doesn't usually, it's not like they snap out of it in fourth grade. It gets worse. And then you have a huge dropout rate. And of course, they're faking, they're high graduation rates now because they dropped all the standards for graduation. So, kids are graduating now and they're just stupid, frankly. They don't know anything. And it's a travesty. The government schools are a travesty, especially in this state. And as I say, there's a sign of a turn.
And Larry, as I recall, we used to have something called the CBEST test for the teachers to guarantee a minimal level of math and reading proficiency. And they've done away with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the CBEST, I took that when I became a teacher out here a million years ago, and it was such an easy test. I mean, it was, if you can't pass that test, oddly now, people study, California students are studying to be teachers. That's probably why they had to do away with the test, because they can't pass it.
Well, that's right. There were a high percentage of minority teachers, black and Hispanic, who couldn't pass it, and therefore they completely got rid of the test. It's amazing, Larry.
Right. Yeah. So instead of bringing everybody up, you bring everybody down. It's tragic. I mean, when I moved to California 40 years ago, things were very different here, and we've tumbled very far, especially recently. And I just have to throw in the fact that the lockdowns, the teacher union mandated lockdowns, did a lot of harm, but also all the CRT stuff that kids are learning. When they're learning CRT and Black Lives Matter and all the other left-wing stuff, it's less time for what they're supposed to be learning about, like 2 and 2. And then there's some school districts now that are teaching, that searching for the right answer is racist. I mean, I have no words. It's just appalling.
And Larry, it's not like they're not spending money. They're spending more money than ever before because the education expenses is tied to the GDP of California. So they're spending more money than ever, getting worse results than ever. And I saw a study about where teachers with school-age kids send their own kids. In Philadelphia, nationwide, 10% or so of us have our kids in private schools. About 6% of black families do. Philadelphia public school teachers, 49% of them with school-age kids, Larry, put their own kids in private schools. Similar numbers in Chicago, about 28% or so here in LAUSD. So the people who know the school system the best do not put their own kids in them.
Yeah, no, I've written about that. The numbers I've seen are I think it's 21% nationwide. I know in Chicago, which I just wrote about, was 39%. It's sort of like, you go to a restaurant where the waiters won't eat the food.
Right. Right.
I mean, that should tell you something right there. It's a higher. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people these days are sending their kids, non-teachers are sending their kids to private schools, but the point is the teachers in higher numbers than the general population
Right.
are sending their kids to private schools.
13 public high schools in Baltimore, Larry, where 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Another half a dozen where only 1% can do math at grade level. That's half of the public schools in Baltimore, and these are the ones, of course, located in the inner city.
Yeah, and Chicago's no better. The numbers, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they're really, in Chicago, they're depopulating like crazy. They're flocking out of public schools in Chicago. I mean, and the teachers union there are far left. Most teachers unions are left, but they are far left in Chicago.
So, Larry, what do we do about this? The people like Gavin Newsom sitting up there at the French Laundry with the people that drafted the mandates, his own kids in private school. They wouldn't put their kid in a public school on a bet, but they also oppose school choice. It's maddening. It's maddening.
Well, ultimately, I'm what's called an abolitionist. I think the government should get out of schools entirely, but that won't happen. I mean, certainly not in my lifetime or my grandchildren's lifetime. So the next best bet is to have school choice. And parents need to start demanding this. Too many parents, when I went to school in the 1950s, my mom could send me off to the local public school and know that the teachers have the same values and I got a good education. This ain't the 1950s anymore. And parents must become more involved. And thankfully, because of CRT and the lockdowns, parents are taking a much greater role, but they need to step it up. And ultimately, we need choice. And there's no reason why the government has to be in full control of school. And people use the excuse that, oh, well, you can't leave it to the private sector. Education's too important. And my response to that is, what about food? When you go shopping for food, you don't go to the government school, the government-run supermarket down the street, God forbid. You go to a privately run market that has your kind of food at a good price. And if you don't like it, you're going to go to another one across town, another market. Why not have the same thing for education? I don't get it.
And last question, Larry, why aren't parents going to Sacramento with pitchforks, yelling and screaming and demanding school choice? Why hasn't that happened?
I don't know. I've used that line myself when I publicly speak. I say I want to see parents with pitchforks outside the Capitol building. And as I say, in all honesty, the lockdowns and the advancing CRT in schools has awakened many parents. There's Moms for Liberty. There's a whole Parents Defending Education. There's a lot of parent-run education groups now, thank God. So it's happening. It's a little bit slow, but it is happening.
Larry Sand, thank you so much for your time. God bless.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Of course. In my baby brown libertarian fingers, I'm holding a pair of MyPillow My Slippers. These are so comfortable, you're going to want to own a pair yourself. They come in different colors. They also come in different styles. Also, this is the MyPillow. There's now a MyPillow 2.0. Call the number on your screen or go to mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. That's mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. You're going to find over 100 products, including the 6-pack towels that work. And the reason they're called towels that work is because they absorb, water. Isn't that what towels are supposed to do? A lot of times you go to the store, they look fine, they feel fine. They don't absorb because of the chemicals they put in the towels. These actually work. They come in different colors, of course. And then finally, you've got the Giza Dream Bedsheet. Giza is an area in Egypt where the finest cotton is grown. Mike Lindell scoured the world to find where the finest cotton is grown, and he found it right in Egypt. Different colors. Mine is white because, after all, I am the black face of white supremacy, but you're not. So they come in different colors. They come in different sizes because, guess what? Beds come in different sizes. So call the number on your screen. Again, over 100 products. Or go to mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. That's mypillow.com, promo code ELDER.